Good afternoon, everyone. I am Desiree Clibia, and I am here to report about the global Interstate system, the global governance in the first 20th century, and the effects of globalization in the government. So, let's go! Bago ko umpisahan yung discussion ko, gusto ko sabihin sa inyo na ang ginawa ko sa report ko is hinati-hati ko siya by sentences in the topic para mas maintindihan nyo ng mabuti yung about sa report ko. Ang una kong i-discuss ay about sa global Interstate system. The state has traditionally been the subject of most interest to scholars of global politics because it is viewed as the institution that creates welfare and sets economic policies for a country. Each and every country globally sets their own economic policies to better sustain their state's needs and welfare. This shows that each nation has authority to govern, make use, and control all of the things that concerns their people and which their territory covers. That was why borders were created and acknowledged. As we keep on talking about globalization, how does it affect politics of one's nation and how does it affect the state's power over its jurisdiction? The second one is, with globalization, some scholars suggest a decrease in the power of the state and other actors are actually becoming more powerful. Some scholars suggest that the increase of power of other actors means that the others were decreasing. This includes organizations and/or corporations that operate globally. Is the idea of the nation-state outdated in the contemporary world? If so, what is that we need to think about as replacement? First, we will look at the regional alliances and the worldwide organization of these states. In this lesson, we will talk about various replacements if the contemporary idea of nation-state was indeed out of date. As we know, when we say global Interstate system, we are talking about the modern world system that is structured politically that results to two things: competing and allying of states. It focuses mainly on connections or relations internationally. And as we keep saying connections and relations, governments around the world tend to strengthen their bond to one another through cooperation and collaboration. International and regional economic bond bodies such as IMF and World Bank must be considered as they often push for neoliberal reforms in the world. First, let us define what neoliberal means. Neoliberalism can be considered as a political economic practices theory which states that a human well-being can be improved by providing them the freedom entrepreneurially and the capabilities with an institutional framework with free markets and trade, and rights over private properties. This means that under neoliberal reforms, we are giving the organizations are simply an individual the liberty. However, this can also mean that the rich may be richer and the poor may be poorer. The International Monetary Fund or IMF and the World Bank were the one who imposed this when their profit rates shrunk and the capitalists were inspired to revive the economic liberalism before and make it new or neo. The third kind of replacement to the traditional nation-state idea of national autonomy comes from the non-state actors. For example, some private groups across the world includes banks or even groups of people with money can determine the well-being of people in a particular area. This means that we can possibly know the well-being of the people in the specific area based on their status financially. Also, Amnesty International or some other multinational corporations and non-governmental organizations are significant organizations that put into question the strength of national autonomy in global politics. Amnesty International is a global movement that pushes campaign to fight abuse of human rights worldwide that consists of more than 7 millions of people, including terrorists, and more than 100 countries across the world. The continuous emerging and empowering of the non-state organizations, specifically the terrorists like ISIS, tend to oppose the policies of states and replace it with their own beliefs and ideology. And that's all for the global interstate system. Now, let's move on to the second topic, which is the global governance in the 21st century. Let us define first what is global governance. Global governance aims to unite diverse and various actors to have collective actions to fulfill some goals. Some of these goals is to provide global public goods, which are the peace, security, and justice among a certain place. In here also involves markets, trades and industry, and resolution of conflicts if there's any. Now, let's see some situation that results to some emerging of global governance around the world. The series of specific factors behind the emergence of global governance. The first on the list must be the declining power of nation-states. The first possible reason why there is an emergency of global governance was when the relative power of nation-states started to reduce. For example, as national governments face problems nowadays that are too big and serious and difficult for them to face on their own, they also needed to increase their needs to find solutions and reduce the power of individual nation-state problems. If they fail to provide a solution to these problems, that is when the possibility of emergence of global governance as the alternative solution. The second factor is the vast flow of all sorts of things that run into often right through the border of nation-states. Now, as we live in a world where we use internet, for example, to gather information, sometimes this could be the reason for the emergence of global governance. Why? Because internet is a buzz. In a couple of seconds, a single information could be possibly leaked immediately even to the outside of the world. It may be accidentally or in purposes. If this happens all the time and nation-states fail to put this to stops, then it could bring negative reactions or result to them. The given examples when China's effort to interfere with the internet have resulted to great condemnations inside and out of their government and nations. Even in internet, there should be the sense of being secure. And so this could possibly be the reasons for a global governance to emerge. There is a mass migration of people and their entry, often illegal, and into various nation-states. Why do we consider these as the reasons for emergences of global governance? Simply because nation-states continuously or fail to control and regulate the entry and exits of different people across their territory. This may lead to various problems and soon be a threat to the national security. They can't monitor who or even what materials were entering their borders, so they need to strengthen and make their security better. They need assistance, and call for a global governance would help them to control this flow and solve their problems. We can also consider experiencing horrendous or alarming events within nation-states as the reasons for the emergences of global governance. If a nation-state isn't capable of controlling these events, they needed help and assistance. For example, in nations where there are continuous wars even up to this day, if their government fails to control and stop this, they needed to help so that their people would feel at peace, secured, and free. Global financial crisis and panic that swept the world periodically, which nations are often unable to deal with their own. Any organizations or even individuals faces different problems. Problem involving money or financial problems is one of them. If someone faces this problem, we are doing our best to cope up and end this problem. However, this is difficult to do, especially when you are not capable enough to do so. So this means that you needed help from others to cope up with this problem. This is the same as when a nation-state faces crisis financially. They needed help from others. If they are unable to help themselves, they need assistance from various types of global governance. So that's all for the global governance in the 21st century. Now, let's move on to the effects of globalization to government. One of the key aspects of the state sovereignty is a government. A government is a group of people who have the ultimate authority to act on behalf of the state. What do we mean by this? This means that a government is composed of a leader who has the authority to govern and lead their people across their boundaries. Each nation or states has their own government, which means that in every nation there is also a different way of governing and set rules implemented. Having a government also let each country to take care and defend their nations against other countries and give them the right to respond to their own issues internally or externally, unless they let other countries to interfere. So each government tend to create their own law, decide and act based on what they see the best for their nation. There are countries, especially democratic countries, who elect their leaders by letting the people choose who they wanted to be their leaders. The implemented laws and policies must also be in favor of the countrymen. Here are some challenges. First, the traditional challenges. In traditional challenges, there are different ways on how to classify these challenges, such as by interventions, externally or internally. And external interventions. This happens when a country invades another country or having a conflict towards sovereignty and authority of independent countries. For example, the conflict between Russia, Crimea, Ukraine countries where Ukraine wasn't recognizing Crimea's sovereignty, and Russia, on the other hand, wasn't recognizing Ukraine's sovereignty over Crimea. We can see in here that there are conflicts between different nations arguing about who among them has the authority over the land. When it comes to internal interventions, the conflict primarily happens inside the nations or government. In the example given, they elected and built a government that rejected the nations of plural society and diverse religions that created the chaos within their country. Also, internal interventions can also happen when people oppose their governments and when governments took a blind eye towards their people. The second challenges is the challenges from national or identity movements. Each nation has their own culture which people embodies even if they are not inside the premises of their countries. This means that we can also face challenges if governments fail to acknowledge and respect people's cultures and beliefs as well as their nationalities, especially if they are non-residents of the nations they are in. For example, a Muslim family migrated to a community wherein all the people are Christians. Then they may face challenges specifically on how they would act and blend with the people around them, and also how people will treat them because of their differences. There are also natives of a certain country that resides to another country because of some factors which later on could be the reasons for this challenge occurs. So that is all. Thank you for listening to me and have a nice day.